Roll 'em. All right, so let's start off by, I'm just going to call out to people. I think everybody can introduce themselves because everybody's pertinent here. So we'll start with Ryan.
Hello all. As Bill said earlier, I'm the music technician. And yeah, I'm also a live sound engineer, studio engineer. Recently started to master a couple of tracks as well. Guitarist, bassist, kind of just anything and everything music I try and get involved in. So yeah. Why you're just seeing my name is because I'm running off a Mac Mini that I work on my studio stuff off, and it doesn't have a camera. So apologies that you can't see my face, but that's probably a good thing. But yeah. Anyone has any questions at all and don't want to fire them into the chat or keep an eye on them, or if you even want to ask me something directly in the chat, go for that as well. That's all cool. But yeah, glad to see you guys here.
Thanks, Ryan. Alice, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hello, I'm Alice. I'm a third-year student on the music course. I primarily play violin, but also play flute and piano, and like dipping into other instruments when I can. In normal times, I'd be playing in the orchestra at uni, singing in the choir, and playing in the world music ensemble.
Thanks, Alice. Nelson, do you mind introducing yourself?
Hi, my name is Nelson, but I go by Will. I'm American, I'm 30. I've been doing music since I was about 14. I got an opportunity to come to the UK. Took the opportunity, and then got another opportunity to further my career, my school career, as far as university. And I figured I go to school for something that I do on a day-to-day basis, which is music. I've taught myself, how to record myself, mixing and mastering to the best of that I can, that I'm self-taught. So going to school and will help me, give me a guideline of the little things that I'm not doing to help me better my mixing and mastering, so I can help other people out and help myself out as well. So that's me, Will.
Thanks, Will. Ben?
Hello.
Hey, Ben.
Hi, I'm Ben. I'm 18. I like making music in my bedroom. Like Will, I'm self-taught. I like all the processes really, straight from recording to mixing and mastering. I'd like to further my education by going to university and learning more about what I love to do.
Thanks, Ben. Nathaniel?
Hi, I'm Nat. I've been studying music for the last few years, just like sixth form stuff. Now I've also been studying jazz improvisation for the past couple of years. I've applied to do audio music tech. So I'm quite interested in a lot of the maths and stuff behind all of the kind of sound.
Brilliant, thank you. Beth?
Hi, I'm 17. Basically, been doing sing-songwriting recently. It's been a thing I've been doing for a little while now. I was taught singing lessons, but I've been...
Your audio.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, that sounds great.
AirPods. I've got to get them fixed. I thought they were broken. So I'm a singer-songwriter mainly. I play piano, write a lot of music in my bedroom. Again, same as everyone else, I've been trying to learn a bit more recording and things. Use Logic a lot to try and record everything. But yeah, that's what I've been doing.
Are you also AMT, Beth?
Pardon?
Are you which course are you on?
Pop music, I think.
Okay, cool. Yeah, we have a good mixture today then. So we're trying to get all the students together because obviously, you know, engineers and musicians should be together, shouldn't they? You know, so that's why we've joined together in this Applicants Day. So thank everybody for coming. It's really great to see you. So I'll just introduce Mark real quick. And so as I said before, Mark is our technical officer. He's a lecturer in audio music technology. But AMT teaches music students as well as audio music technology students. He's actually also an industry professional, so he works freelance across a couple disciplines. So he works in audio. He was a recording engineer, as well as a musician, as well as a music video producer and filmmaker. Without further ado, this is going to be basically a podcast, all right? So I'm going to ask Mark some questions, and I'll just ask that everybody mute their microphones as well when they're not speaking.
We've got one new participant as well just joined us. So hello Henry, welcome. We're just talking about, everyone's just been introducing themselves. Do you want to say hello quickly?
Hello, just hope I'm in the right place.
What's your course, Henry?
I don't know. I think I went for like a music course, so I suppose there's like multiple different ones, or is this all the same music course?
Yeah, you're in the right spot. This is music courses and audio music technology. Welcome.
Welcome.
Okay, so say that again. Henry froze. Okay, so I'm going to start. So thank you everybody again for coming. So so the first thing I'm going to do is so Mark, can you, the one person that we didn't get introduced to you to is Mark. So Mark, can you introduce what you do at ARU first of all? You're muted, Mark.
Yeah, I've got many buttons to press here, so sorry about that. I just want to say it's really cool that I think because of what's been going on with the lockdown and things, I think everyone's slightly interested in music technology as well, because it's like everyone's learning to record themselves at home, and I think that's really exciting, and I think it's interesting for our industry.
Well, you know, as we know, because we're both producers and engineers, is that nowadays and this environment has made it even more clear that musicians need to know how to record themselves well as engineers do.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, and so anyway, back to what I do at ARU. So this is a similar role to Ryan, who is also technical officer. So Ryan and I look after. Ryan's more based in the music department. I'm more based in audio music tech, but we do cross over and we are colleagues. So I look after the audio music technology recording studios. So that's 5 recording studios and a podcast studio. And I essentially I equip them, I maintain them, and I operate in them. And I'm your kind of go-to guy when you're in the facilities for support, microphones, equipment, and general kind of abiding and hanging out kind of stuff. Yeah, that's what I do. And I'm also a lecturer, and I currently lecture in a module called Audio for Film, because that's one of the elements that I do professionally. And I also lecture in collaborative project, which also suits my background, because I work in what I do is always collaborative.
I noticed that you said you abide. Does that make you the dude?
I think you're the dude.
Right. Can you tell us more about your professional aspects of your career, Mark? Because I don't know if I touched on it very much, but you have a very thriving freelance business as well.
Yes. Now it's interesting because when you were introducing me a moment ago, you were almost listing off like an almost like embarrassing amount of things, right? But it's basically essentially what I am is I'm working as a music video director and a filmmaker and an audio and music specialist. So that kind of would say a multidisciplined audio, visual, creative, and technologist, I guess, is what I would, if I had to kind of sum it up. But I think what it is really, I think, certainly of the generation that I'm part of, and I'm not going to give my age away, but little younger than Bill, and what I found it advantageous to have a wide, diverse skill set, because in the freelance world it means that you've always got somewhere to be, somewhere to go, and I've had a very interesting windy, weavy journey over the last 20 years to get where I am now, and it's sort of, I've worked in like key elements of the film industry across different disciplines within the film industry as well as audio and music. And I also compose music for promos and adverts and commercials and that kind of thing. Yeah.
So you say you had a windy, weavy career, but it's clearly going in a direction. When did you realize that it was going in the right direction, or is it going in the right direction?
I think that's an interesting point in itself, because you can look, being freelance has a certain amount of uncertainty to it, right? And you do end up, you kind of do one job, it's over, you move on to the next one, and it's over, you move on to the next one, and then you have returning clients. Did I ever think? I think you get these moments in your career where you think, "Oh my God, I've made it," right? And then when you say that, it all falls apart, right? So you get this kind of like, I guess it's the first time it happened was with the financial crash. I was more working on corporate videos mainly, and productions, and I started doing team building events, and I had this really thriving business of creating these exciting filmmaking and music creating team building events for the financial, mostly for corporate London. And in 2008, the financial crash happened, and that whole thing just burned overnight. It completely went. And it was like, right, what do I do? And it's like, well, actually, it gave me some focus to say, well, do I want to be doing corporate all my life? No. So I diversified more into fashion, and started doing fashion promos, and then ended up on an agency, and I got it to do a United Colours of Benetton campaign with my brother, and that was really exciting. So around about these sort of times, you kind of, when you get booked by big clients like that, you start to go, I think I'm going in the right direction. There was one instance when it was 2012 actually, 2013, so a while ago now, but I got flown over to New York City to work with Paloma Faith, and that was the moment where I was like, I'm a director and I'm directing Paloma Faith. This is, things are going to be massive now, and of course when I say false start, that just led to the next job. It didn't mean I was entitled to some kind of skyward career. It's just like you get a bit starstruck and you think, oh, I'm mixing in these circles, but really it's just another job. And that's the essence of what this career is all about. It's just getting the job done and moving on to the next thing.
I've had pretty much the same kind of thing happen as well, which, one of the things that really annoys me is when people say the thing that, oh, you teach because you can't do. But I think in today's environment, it's a totally different scenario now. So just same as you, I worked on big tours, when I was a touring sound engineer. I've worked with, big actors on films. I've recorded, musicians that were on their way up and things like that, and it just like, I think that what happened is that at some point, as we know, music studios are have been shutting down for like over a decade now. The top film companies are starting to break apart, and independents are becoming more of a thing. Musicians aren't getting signed to record labels so much unless you have a massive following already.
Yeah, and actually, and when they do get signed, they get signed on what's it called, a 24. It's like a basically they own your life. Everything.
It's a 360 contract or something like that. Yeah. So I think that both of you and I. So at one point I got in a discussion with somebody about success, and it was regarding a band that was touring the world basically, but they weren't making loads of money. And I said, well, that's success, Yeah. I'm working in film, music, and game now. To me, that's exactly where I want to be.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Because I make a living doing the thing I love doing, right? We could all want more money, we all want a bigger house, but at least we're not with the great. And I have worked in a long time in retail when I was younger. At least I'm not stacking shelves in the supermarket, which is a perfectly amicable job. But managing to carve out your own career is really, it's a real achievement for guys like us and girls like us and persons like us too.
So at this point, I think I'd like to ask some questions about you as a video director, producer, and cinematographer. So, would you like to show your last music video that you made?
I'll tell you what I'll do. I was going to do a little case study of that in a little while, but just to chat through, because we had students involved in that, and that's quite interesting to talk about. What I'll do now is I'll just show you a kind of showreel of stuff that I've worked on, to give you an idea about the different kind of things that I do. And it's just a couple of minutes, if that's all right with you, Billy-O.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, Sorry that I wasn't sharing. Right. I realised that I may not have been sharing it from at the beginning there, so sorry about that.
Can we just make your screen the main screen? I don't know who has control, Ryan or you.
How do you mean?
Because there's so many people in the chat in the window now that you've disappeared into the little teeny corner.
Why don't you press speaker view and then you'll see.
Yeah, I don't have that option.
Oh well, you can't then.
You can pin yourself, Mark.
Okay, so can you tell us what it's like working in the music video production industry?
Yes. Yeah, I mean it's changed a lot. You're seeing me when I speak, right?
Yeah. In the corner though, so
why don't you pin me and then change it to speaker view? You can do that, can't you?
there we go.
Okay, all right, fine.
You're pinned for me. I don't know about for everybody else, but
well, let's just go with that. It seems to be working. So
Okay.
it's kind of a different industry than when I started. When I first started, so like this camera that I'm using, for example, right? That could be used for music video because it's got it's got a large sensor. These days, you can get almost cinematic quality on much smaller cameras. When I started, everything was massive, absolutely massive. But me and my brother came into the industry as what's more common now, but wasn't so common then, which is being self-shooters, being able to light things, being able to come up with creative ideas, being able to do a lot of the technological aspects of it. And we were very much disliked by the industry because the industry was all kind of old movie guys, right? Who were used to making like £100,000 music videos, and that even when I started, you'd be lucky to get that. But there was still quite a big industry because people were buying music. But actually, when you're sort of 25 years old, the old guard don't like you, and you are an outsider. And so we had to push really hard to get taken seriously. And thank goodness this all happened under what I'd say the landscape of the digital revolution, making technology more accessible. And these old guards, they had to change the way they worked. And it was maybe our generation coming through that forced this change. And that's why now we have, and they thought it was going to kill the industry, having guys like me coming in, but it didn't, because as the internet's developed, there's so many ways to monetize video content now, and you just got to look at the way. I mean, YouTube is maybe changing the way it's doing now, but streaming's a massive thing. Social media influencing is a massive thing. Being, a valid career is YouTubing or being a Twitch streamer now, and that's amazing. That wasn't like that when I started, but nowadays, so the music videos are much lower budget than they used to be, and that's kind of reflects the music industry. I would say now I do music videos more to boost my showreel than I do to make money because the budgets are so tight. I would rather just make an amazing video, for 5-10 grand, that looks like it cost 100 grand than, because you're not going to make a great deal of money off that anyway. Directors get 10% of the budget, which is great if you've got a 100 grand video, but not so great if you've only got a 5 grand video, right? So you just got to get that. It's a different business model now as a music video director. So you just got to think. It should be. It's a string to my bow from what I do, and I make much more money as an audio-visual event consultant, for example, using my video skills and taking them to the events industry, and that's far more lucrative. But it's still the passion of music videos are my passion, and I love making them.
Well, you've you don't only sometimes you don't make any money doing them either, because you've actually made videos for bands that for university students as well, and you've made I know you've made videos for some of the bands that I've worked with in the past. So what are you working on? What have you been working on lately?
Yeah, well,
I know it's a difficult situation in the world that we've been living in for almost a year now. So
yeah, I mean, what I'd say to that as well, I think it's not all about doing fashion promos with Dua Lipa and big music videos. It is. I love I feel like duty bound to support the local industry, you know, that local bands. And what, you know, so I always do, you know, the local bands, they're not going to have the sort of budgets to do these kind of videos that we do for other artists, but you need an online presence, you need a business, a calling card, people need to see what you look like, it needs to look slick. So I just say, look, if you can pay for the costs and you're good, I'll make it. You know, that's what I do on that side of it, because I think it's important to stimulate people's creativity. And I think as well, what a lot of local bands and smaller bands don't quite get is like they want to make some ridiculously complicated narrative music video, and there's no point, because if you're an unsigned artist, you just really want to do a performance-based video, really, and that's what you should do, you know.
Well, I also think that sometimes musicians might not know the best visual approach to a video either, where I think that somebody that does video for a living will have a better idea of what's achievable and what's not achievable.
Yeah, and I think what I would say is with that is that, you know, I'm a director, and I work with with a smaller band, but the only caveat is that I get to direct it, right? Because otherwise, you just what's the point? You're just getting somebody who can operate a camera really well for free, you know. You know, at least there's got to be some. But actually, in the music industry, how it works is, you know, the artist very rarely has a say in the music in what happens. It gets tendered out to directors, and then the director with the most interesting idea gets the video, and the band usually chooses it. But quite often, you do get to work with a band directly and say, well, what's, you know, let's work together and share the creative vision, which is what I'd get to now, because you're asking me about what I've been working on lately, and my latest project is working with a band called Morchiba. I don't know if anyone's heard of them, but they were very, very big a long time ago. I'm just going to sort my focus out, mate, because I feel a bit out of focus there, and as a cameraman, that kind of bothers me. So look, I'll do you a quick rundown of what I've been working on recently, and this is something that I've had students involved with, coming along, getting some set experience, running the playback systems, and actually just getting a feel for what it's like on a professional set. So if you're happy with that, I'll talk through that, Bill.
Yeah, go for it, please.
Excellent. I'll just get my little presentation going there. All right, so I shall, hang on a second, share my screen here. Desktop 2. So you should see, just confirm that you can see this.
Yep, I can see it just fine.
Yep. Okay.
Just before you start that, Mark, just keep an eye out. There's a potential student in the waiting room.
I think I got rid of the waiting room, didn't I?
Oh, okay. No, that's all right then.
Participants. Yeah, the waiting room's gone, mate. I believe.
Happy days.
Yep, that's good. Okay. So you can see just the lady and Morchiba, right?
Yep.
Yeah, cool. So this is my latest project. Morchiba are a band that were really, I mean, look, they were really big in the late 90s and early 2000s, okay? They had a platinum selling album called Big Cam, and it was a really huge album at the time. And they've also got 3 other gold albums before they sort of went back underground a bit. But they're back at the moment, and I'm wondering if it's because there's a bit of a 90s thing happening at the moment. I mean, I'm certainly dressed like it's the 90s. I don't know about anybody else. So working with Morchiba, the brief was to do 3 videos, 2 singles. The first one being Sounds of Blue, which is the one that I'm going to show you in a minute, and this is the one that we're working on. And I just shot another one called The Moon. Sounds of Blue was done in Tier 3, so there was a little bit less restrictions from the COVID point of view, and The Moon was shot during lockdown, so that was a totally COVID-safe set and very difficult, but that one's going to be amazing too. So the idea with Sounds of Blue was to do an underwater, a false underwater scene. So what we did is we shoveled in 10 tons of sand, with the help from some students, of course, into the set. And this is what the set was like when we got it up and running. And this quote here, this is not the Bee Gees, right? So my director of photography on this shoot, because I wasn't the director of photography, I was actually the first assistant director working with my brother as director. He's quite a funny guy. And these lights, these spotlights shining down, he was like, it's not supposed to be a Bee Gees video, and it was just really funny because so what we did, we had a little relight and we sorted it out and we made it more like this, so that you can see that's got that kind of element of under the water. That's the seabed, and then this is what it looked like on the camera screen. So just give you more idea what it really looked like. So like that. So what we wanted to do was to put Sky the singer in this underwater world. So how we do that is, firstly, we shoot pretty much everything in slow motion, okay? So to do that, so to sing in slow motion, what you do is you play the track at twice the speed. So Sky the singer is singing at twice the speed, but when you play it back, it's running in slow motion, but it's in time. So it gives you that nice floaty feel. So that's what we pretty much do it on every video anyway. There's a bit of movie magic from skill here. So we wanted to represent water currents. So you'll see here, this is one of our students, Charlie. So he's got a fan, a wind machine, and he's got a piece of material, a very big long piece of material. So what we did is we hung all these little bits of material all across the set and run fans under them. And it seems really DIY and hokey, but actually, you know, it ends up looking like this. You know, that's the fans blowing them about. So you get that kind of water feel, and it was really, really effective, and it looked great. So we had three of our students here were creating some of the set for me as well. So this is a really shonky fiberglass boat that didn't look very good on the set. So we got some material that looked like wood to patch around it, and we made a little pokey sail. And then underneath the boat, we put all this material and fans. You can see the fans there underneath it. And so it looks kind of weird, but on camera with the Steadicam floating around, it has quite an effect. It does look hyper fake, you know, but that's the whole point. But it was really effective. This is my brother, who I work with as well. He looks a bit like me. And you see behind, this is the choreographer. She is not wearing her mask correctly. That's why I put, because her nose was sticking out. I did pick her up on that. There you go. So this is what it looked like when we had them in the boat. So that's kind of like, you got the projected onto the material is kind of sea waves that we've done, and then we've got the fans blowing underneath it. And what I'll do now is I will play the video for you if you would like to see it. We've got time, haven't we?
Yeah, bring it on. Let's see it.
Good-o.
I think we'll probably do about another half an hour of questions, and then we'll open it up to students to ask questions.
That's great, man. Okay, so I'll just get this queued up. So this is Sounds of Blue. So it was released in January, late January, early Feb, and it's doing okay. It's got about 770,000 views, so fairly happy with that. Can you see a lady and a man on a boat?
Yes, we can.
Okay, I shall play it for you.
That was awesome. Thanks, Mark. So what would you say you're muted again, Mark?
Yeah. So that was a fun video.
Yeah, awesome. I love it. I think when it was first released, I said to you that I thought it was pretty amazing that your imagination, because I would have never thought of how to make that in a million years.
Well, that's why we do it. But they were lovely to work with, and that's one thing I'd say as well, is that when you get you know, some artists can be a little bit diva. Take, you know, I'm not going to name any names, but once you break that surface, most people are really lovely, and Sky and Ross are absolutely brilliant collaborators. They're so good to work with, and I can't wait to do the next one, which is a live. It was going to be a live video with live recording, so I'm going to get some students involved in that as well. Anyway, yeah, over to you.
So, what would you say your unique selling point is on being because you get work from you know, A-list people as well as local musicians. So, and in order, you know, it's not you out there advertising it either. It's they're coming to you. So, what would you say your unique selling point is that keeps them coming back for more?
Making it look like it cost a lot more than it does, which is kind of funny because these days a lot of people are using VHS filters, you know, like old VHS type filters to downgrade the videos. It's a very popular thing, but it's so funny because like when I started, we tried to work really hard to make videos not look like that. but you know, it depends on the style of it. But yeah, definitely that we can stretch the budget. That is our unique selling point for sure.
Yeah, I've one of my favorite films. It's called The Road to Paloma, and they shot the video through a lady's nylon. You know what I mean? A legging. Yeah. They shot the video through a legging to give it kind of an old brownish kind of appearance. Have you heard of that before?
Yes. It's the old and also the Vaseline on the lens thing. You know, that kind of cheap American TV look.
Yeah. Yeah, I know very well.
Yeah. Star Trek: The Next Generation sort of thing.
You know, you and I share a lot of commonalities in what we do because we both produce and engineer bands, and we both make films, and so we both made quite a few feature films. Can you tell me about how you got into making feature films and that?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like whether or not I could, you know, honestly call myself a feature film maker, kind of, in the sense that I've worked.
I fix feature films is what I do. I fix the audio in feature films.
Yeah, and I've done a bit of that. What I tend to have done in the past has just been little bits and pieces, you know, bits of music, bits of audio work, and also working on sets and things like that. But I have made, you know, like 3 dramas now, and that's a really difficult thing to transition from visual narrative like music videos to drama, because it's so easy to forget about the human element, which is the actors, and that's what it's all about to them, you know. Whereas you can get so obsessed with covered up in the vision. So the 3 drama films that I've done. So the latest one was a low budget horror, and look, it got international cinema distribution. I'm not complaining about that. But it is a B movie, and I'm not going to deny that it's anything but that. But it's a good B movie, and it sounds all right, and it's shot pretty well.
I just think it sounds great. It looks great as well. It's you know, I've worked on B movies as well, and I'm not going to downgrade them at all. You know, but you know, there's a market for B movies, and you know what? It's fun to make them, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I've just put the name of it in the chat. It's called Wicked Witches. It's available on Amazon Video at a product cost. Yeah, I mean, it is interesting, but I think the challenge for people who like photographers as well. Photographers moving into a lot of photographers have moved into video production because it's a similar kind of field. But the problem with what I've noticed with that is when you're working with, let's say, I'm working as a audio recordist or something like that on a set, and a director or a director of photography coming from a photography background has never worked with sound before, and so you end up having this kind of wrestle on the set that the sound's going to be terrible, and that's kind of impacting the industry in other ways. But you've got to remember that, you know, the actors are the important thing, and you've got to get in their head and you've got to work with them, and that's something that has been a new thing for me to learn over the last few years.
Yeah, I work in post production, so I don't generally have to deal with actors. I have on a couple occasions, and I enjoy it. But
Yeah.
I do like sitting in the room and being creative. Um, so one of the things that in audio music technology for sure, but I've started introducing this into the music courses is that and we kind of touched a bit on this in the beginning, is that we have to be kind of open to multiple ways, multiple things of doing things, because as freelancers, because it's really difficult to get, to be a recording artist, or and you've been that as well. You were signed for a short time as well, and so. So, for instance, like we in audio music technology, we try to expand what people think about where they can go with their careers. So, for instance, the musicians in the room, there's big industry in putting your music into films. Because your Witches film, you did the music for it
Yes,
as well.
I did. It's that old joke. I wrote the theme tune, I sang the theme tune, or whatever. It's yeah. But this is the thing. But these days, and look, a lot of people are especially. Sometimes in academic circles, but mostly a lot of people are kind of they don't understand that you can be multidisciplined, right? Why not? This is a time where people like our students, right? They're gonna have grown up. Most of them will have some kind of video shooting experience, maybe the YouTube, maybe they do Twitch streams. They're gonna be learning to record their own music that they're playing in their bedrooms, right? They're gonna go out there and get it, And I think a lot of older generation people, and I'm not to criticize it, but they don't understand being multidisciplined, right? And one of the things that I find is like when someone says, "Oh yeah, but you're a jack of all trades," it's like, no, I'm not. I'm very good at a few of them actually, and many of us are. And you've got to accept that is the changing tide. And it's a great place to be, I think. And I think it's a good future for our students, for music students, for audio music technology students, for film students. There's a really exciting landscape out there at the moment.
Well, I absolutely love. I mean, I'm most of the musicians would not consider me a musician because I'm a drummer, but
I would.
But I love the fact that some of the because I work in post production. Sometimes, like when I'm on a film, I find that there's a part of the film that just is lacking something. It's just not moving correctly. With just the video or something like that. So I will create a little piece of music just for that part of the film, or create some ambience for certain parts of the film, but also, I also want to say, I mean, we don't need to go into it at all, but the game industry is a really awesome place for musicians and audio music technologists to go into now. In fact, the game industry is much bigger than all of the other industries we work in combined.
Yep. I mean, pretty much. I mean, most young adults, and I include ourselves. Well, we're not really young adults, are we? But I game. Do you game?
Yeah. Oh yeah, all the time.
Everybody games, right?
Yeah.
I try not to game that much, but like you say, that you've still got to compose music for it. You've still got to record the sound design and all that. So those skills are all transferable, and I think that's really important. And I think for us as educators to recognise that and to pass that knowledge on to our students is vital, actually. And like you say, you could be scoring a film one week, you could be recording footsteps for a horror film the next, and what an exciting place.
Well, the one thing that as teaching film aspects of film is one of the things that is unknown, is that musicians and dancers are quite sought after when they're doing Foley in film, because they have a rhythm, there's a rhythm there. that sometimes actors don't have, you know?
I absolutely. So for those who don't know what Foley is basically when we record film sound, we only record the dialogue on the set. Everything else is made in a studio, right? So Foley is like me picking up a cup. That's Foley. Footsteps, clothes movement. But like Bill says, dancers and musicians make really, because they've got a sense of rhythm and timing, which are actually really fundamental parts of critical analysis within film. But you get that when you do your lessons with me. They do make great because they've got that you've seen that video where those people they look like Foley artists, look like dancers, the way they're moving about, and it really works. It rhythmically really works. Yeah, I totally agree with that. And as well, it's the same way as like skateboarders make good filmmakers, right? It's true, because skateboarders have that balance to hold a camera steady, and actually a lot of skaters are filmmakers because they're always shooting what they do. And that's how I became a filmmaker, because I was a skater, and I took my camera and started shooting other stuff, you know. So yeah, there are these. I think transferable skills is a really exciting element of what we do.
So I really enjoyed your film, the Witches, and can you tell us more about why you did it the way you did it? You actually had a significant role in playing that, in making that film, and you know, I'm not afraid to say that you probably bit off more than you could chew at times, didn't you?
I would say absolutely yes, 100% I did, and I don't ever want to go through that experience ever again. But it proved what two people can do. It was kind of an exercise in low budget filmmaking, right? We wanted to make a film, we wanted to make it quickly. We were going down the financing route, and it was just so many compromises, and we knew that the film would get completely. It would be somebody else's film by the time we finished it, and it was going to take probably 2 or 3 years to get it financed. And we just were like, you know, we're getting towards 40 years old. We need to get moving, so we just made it, and we went out and made it. And technology allowed us to do that, especially modern small camera technology, audio recording equipment. So we went out and we wrote it and we shot it and we financed it ourselves, which is a bad thing. I shouldn't really do that. But we did. And we just fitted it into our lives. And shooting it was one thing. So it took 2 years to complete. But the post-production was the big hard bit, you know. So not only did I edit the film, my brother co-edited it, but I've got all the equipment, so I edited it. And I did the sound design and I did the score. And some of my song compositions are on there as well. And that's a pretty ridiculous thing to do, but it was just quicker to do it that way. I would definitely collaborate next time, absolutely, as you should. But when you're doing 5 or 6 people's jobs in one go, it's really taxing on you, and it kind of put me off doing films, to be honest, for a bit. At least.
Well, that's why I started specializing, because when I first started, I was trying to do everything that had to do with the sound. Yeah. And it was just like a nightmare, you know, and it's impossible. It's not impossible. It's possible, but it's really difficult, you know, and also it's really nice to have more than one person's perspective on things as well, don't you think?
I think it's absolutely vital. Yeah, it's vital to have more than one person's perspective. I think you've got one person, like a director or 2 directors or something, with an overall vision, and you work with people that you like. That, you know, you don't just work with random people. You work with people that you've seen their work, you like what they do, so you know it's gonna be a good marriage, you know. And since doing the film, I've worked on a couple more short films, specialising, like you say. And I've done, you know, I've just done sound, and I just love doing sound design, man. I love creating. Because, you know, once you understand it, that, you know, that sound design, and this is Spielberg says this, it's the invisible puppet master behind all films that have sound on them. Even more so than the visual, even though the visual is the thing you remember. You don't remember the sound because it's the thing that just happens. But it's everything that happens in audio in a film is on purpose. There's nothing is by accident. It's designed that way, and I love it. I did a series of films for the Human Trafficking Foundation and also an anti-slavery campaign. It was actually a VR film. Somebody else spatialize the audio because I can't really do that at the moment. But I got to sound design this really interesting piece, and it was just brilliant. Just specializing on that, and I was like, I'm not editing it, I'm not filming it, I'm just but I'm just working on the sound aspect. So yeah.
Well, this is what because we have AMT and music in the house, shall we say? I just wanted to point out that you and I both do sound design, and you and I both have totally different approaches to it. Do you want to talk about that at all? Because
Yeah.
I think that's pretty cool. Because it shows that there's more than one way to go about doing things, and you do what is good for you.
Yeah, absolutely. We do have very different approaches. Before I do it, I will say we will address Carl's comment in the chat shortly. And if you've got any other questions about more course-related things, we will deal with that as well, if you need any more information. But yeah, so Bill and I have very different approaches. You can probably, I don't know, I'll just scan the camera around my little studio here, and you'll see a common theme. There's synthesizers, and instruments. I take a kind of, my sound design tends to be a bit more electronic, I would say, wouldn't you?
Musical.
Maybe more musical. Probably more in line with like Blade Runner-y kind of stuff. I love doing that kind of business. And it works with the style of films that I do, because they tend to be they tend to lend themselves to having quite, sensational rises and sounds like that. Especially horror, you can go crazy. You can go too crazy. But your approach is slightly more is interesting, because you're more of a real, like a worldly sounds guy. You find. Tell us about that. Go on.
I make noises. I love noises. I like slowing things down. I like using environmental sounds. I like using animal sounds, messing with animal sounds, because there's lots of really richness in different sounds that different animals make, like bats. I once made a music track that had a bat slowed down. And used as the rhythm of the track rather than hi-hat, and it worked really well.
That is awesome. That's really interesting.
Yeah, it was. It turned out great. I loved it.
I once recorded the inside of 6 different trees, just for a sound theory sound practice module, and it turns out they have all very different resonant tones depending on the type of tree. And it's like a heartbeat sound. I ended up using it as a kick drum in 1 or 2 tracks as well. It was quite cool.
Oh, that's cool.
Wow, awesome. Here's do you want to hear an interesting fact that I learned a few years ago? Trees, I can't remember a specific tree, because obviously Ryan's just talking about the resonance. Looking at the frequency response spectrum, right? Apparently, the thing that, because you can measure trees' happiness somehow. I can't remember how you do it, but what makes trees the most miserable is Barry Manilow. The sound of his voice is the most.
I've heard that too. That's funny. Oh dear. Right. So, as you pointed out in your video, you work with your brother. What's that like?
Can be great. Working with family, it has its ups and downs, man. Look, Martin and I, when we're on set together, we're great, right? But it's the post-production stuff we argue about. It's that stuff. Working with family can be really, if you've got a similar vision, it can be a very powerful thing to do. Because if you look at, say, the Coen brothers, for example, right? I love the Coen brothers. Like, they're probably my favorite filmmakers, I'd say. Certainly Big Lebowski, where you take your overall worldview and look from, Bill. So it can be really powerful, but
he copied me, man.
Yeah. But you got to create. I think when you're working with your brother, you've got to say, right, if something's like that video we watched there, we're working on something that's big. Together, we're much more powerful, right? But you need to have breaks from that. So we learned this. We worked together just in each other's shoes for years to start with. And then after a while you start to annoy each other, you know. And actually what we do now is that he works on his thing, I work on my thing, and when we you know, I do my day-to-day stuff, which is probably more music and audio related, and I do my own films and stuff, and he does his thing, and then we come together when it matters, and then we don't fight. But yeah, you can imagine two Scottish guys working together, brothers. It's not. It can be a bit difficult at times, you know.
I just wanted to ask you about. So you're in a very unique position because you know, we've been working together for quite a few years as in education.
Yeah.
And in fact, you were. It was partially because of my inability to actually film, to run a camera, that you got hired. So, can you tell us about what you bring from your freelance work to your teaching? Because I mean, I'll just to explain a little bit, is Mark's technician, but he also is part-time lecturer as well for us. Because you know, I you know, and this is the thing you're going to find is many technicians out there. Just because they're technicians doesn't make them pros. You know what I mean? So you're a pro, and that's why we have you teaching, because that's the standard that we want at ARU. So can you tell us about what you bring from your freelance to your teaching?
Yes. Well, my big, I'd say everything that I do within my teaching, and to be honest, within my tech support as well, to a point, but in my teaching it's all about employability for me, right? Because ultimately you want jobs, right? You don't want to complete a degree and go, okay, I've got a first in pop music, or I've got a first in audio music tech, and now I'm going to go and, you know, deliver newspapers or something, or I'm going to, you know, because you don't know what that path is. Now, that's the way I look at it. So within my I bring in concepts and things that we work on in the industry, and I put them and I frame them in an academic context, right? So the teaching is academic. It is relevant, but also it is that real world experience, and just preparing students for the real world to a point. You know, you can't give somebody a career, you can't hand it to them, but you can give them the tools they need. You know, I can't give someone my contact list. It's not going to happen, right? I've actually had students ask me for that before. But
well, your contacts will tell them to go away or ignore them. You know.
Yeah.
There's a way to get into the industry, and it's not via the direct channel.
No, and it's not easy either, and that's the thing. You know, you spend 20 years getting your career going. You're not just going to hand it over to someone else, but you equip somebody with the tools to do it. But what I also do, like I will select certain students to come and work with me, right? Whether it's on something that's audio based related, or whether it's something video related, and actually by doing that, they can start mixing with other people who are at their part, because on the set there's going to be other production assistants and people at the same level as them. That's where you start making your contacts. And it's the same with music and concerts and things like that. You start mixing with other musicians, you start making your, you know, the best thing musicians can do is to work together and collaborate. I find when I was a musician, and bearing in mind I've been through a lot of time as a musician and toured and everything like that, what I learned was that you got to make friends with other musicians, right? And musicians can be very tribal. I'm doing this is my thing, I'm not going to share it with anybody. Bands can be very suspicious of each other when they meet. But actually, the other band's just thinking the same thing about you are about them. And actually, why don't you know, if three bands work together, you could fill a venue with 500 people, rather than, you know, not helping each other out and playing to 20, you know. But, you know, and it's just little things like that help people in their careers that I can bring to it. So yeah, employability, I'd say, would be my main kind of drive.
So we're almost coming out of a lockdown now, and it's been a pretty bad year for our industry. At the moment, I've started pre-production on a second album from a band named Madre Sun. So that's where I'm at musically right now. As far as playing in bands, during the lockdown area, I started up a band and it kind of fizzled and it went nowhere, and I just kind of got fed up with dealing with it. Whether I come back to it again or not, that's yet to see. But so, where are you musically in your life?
Musically, I'm in an electronic place because I don't need to work with other musicians to do that. I am working with another musician remotely, and we're sharing ideas. But I'm sort of producing electronic music that is kind of progressive electronic house, that kind of thing. But I'd say that musically, I think it's difficult at the moment, and I'll quit. I don't want to go on too long about this, but I think lockdown's created a bit of an opportunity actually for I'm not going to say ordinary musicians because there's no such thing, but for musicians to actually learn a bit more of technology, and I think that's what's happened, and I think it's going to be. I think it's created a kind of wave of creativity that is going to manifest itself maybe this year, maybe next year, but I think there's going to be a massive creative launch, and whether it's gigs outside or socially distanced gigs, or whether it's just everyone's vaccinated and we're back to normal. But I think you'll agree with me, if you've ever watched a live stream of somebody sitting there playing their guitar with an iPhone, it's rubbish, right? Nobody wants to watch that. But if you've got a nice microphone, if your guitar's mic'd up, you're playing to a click track perhaps, or you've got a little drum machine backing you up, it's actually pretty good, if you've got a nice camera. So people are learning all these different skills, and I think the upside of it is going to be some really, really great music coming out, I really think, and that's where I'm.
Well, we've been exploring that for quite a while, haven't we? Is in AMT especially, but which is. We haven't had many musicians take us up on our podcasting, but doing the podcasting is a way to learn some different skills.
Yeah.
Like using a camera, understanding how a camera works. Understanding how a video mixer works.
Yeah.
Things like that. So you're right. It's like new skills coming out, and skills that becoming a musician or an engineer professionally, people have to know about you. So you have to kind of put yourself out there, and what better way to do that than understand the kit and do it yourself, sort of thing.
Yeah, and I think that we were wise to. And I know it kind of started a little bit with our podcast because of lockdown and things like that, but as we move forward, I want to really push. I want to ramp that up because we recognise at least that streaming is a thing now. Podcast with video is like the thing, the big, So, and that enables us to upskill students who want to get involved. And what I'd love to do would be have much more regular content and have musicians involved as well. Let's do profiles on our music students. Let's get them in, just interview them. Let's have them perform. We can do it pre-recorded or maybe try and do some of it live. We've got the equipment to do it. So while they're here, they can learn to use cameras, portable TV studio, vision mixers, and essentially train to be what I do as well as a broadcast streaming engineer. And I get paid very well to do that. And even in the COVID landscape, I have been busy doing live streaming work, albeit socially distanced and all that, but it's at a professional level. So I think it's just an amazing opportunity that we've got here, and I hope that our students and our prospective students that are hopefully going to come here will get involved with that, and I think it's going to be an exciting time.
Yeah, the more the merrier, and it's it's fun to make these podcasts, and it doesn't, you know, it doesn't have to be about audio and music technology, or it doesn't have to be about music.
No.
It can be about it can be about what you enjoy doing, you know.
Anything interesting, you know, obviously maybe not Satanism or something weird like that, but like,
No.
you know, but it's open, and you know, and not just you and I talking, and I know that, you know, but like people getting involved, talking about their subjects. They might be interested in gaming or doing music for gaming. They might be, it's just so open, and I can't wait to get back, and I can't wait to see, you know, to get students in.
So, can I just ask you about something that you touched on we touched on briefly earlier, is about, you know, because you actually started off as a musician, didn't you? And then you kind of moved into the industry, and then you became a sound engineer later on. Where I started off as a musician, then I went into engineering, and then went into filmmaking, and now gaming. So, how has being a musician influenced or helped you in your job?
Massively, I would say. I mean, fundamentally, I consider myself. I'm sure I know you do as well. I'm a musician, right? And everything else is just something else that I do, right? That's the way I see it. Because, you know, I think starting out, spending a lot of time in the recording studio when I was younger, working with engineers and producers, I was like, what? I want to know more about what they do, right? So it's a weird thing, because I was a guy who had a film photography camera, was obsessed with that really powerful late 90s wave of amazing films, like you know, like Fight Club, I'm trying to remember that. I can't remember the name more. Tarantino, all that kind of stuff. That Train Spotting, that was happening at the same time I was a musician, right? And I was like, I want to be I want to be a filmmaker, but I'm going to try and be in a famous band first, right? And then that, you know. But you can, I think the skills that musicians learn, one, like collaborating. Musicians are great collaborators because they have to be. They're all, you know, we know musicians can have ego problems, but we're great collaborators because that's what being in bands is all about. And that's definitely helped me in everything that I've done, working with you, working in the film industry, because the film industry is collaborations. It's all team collaborations. So I'd say from that perspective, definitely. From a technical side, I'd say more that I wanted to learn this, so I did. And eventually that made me into a sound engineer, partly through default, I think.
Yeah, I started off sound engineering because I was I needed to record my bands that I was in, and then my friends started coming to me to get them to record their bands and stuff like that, and I found that I kind of had an affinity with it, really. Unfortunately, I was better at being an engineer than being a bandmate, because I'm a bit of a rebel, as you know.
Yeah, I do know. It's the same for me. That the band that I was in that did well and became a band called Lonely the Brave, signed to Columbia Records. But before that, you know, we didn't have money for recordings. It's like, well, I've got an 8-track. Let's, you know, a digital 8-track. Let's get some mics, and that's how I learned it, through trial and error. I made some right terrible recordings. You know, I remember miking up my mate's mum and dad's house. He had a big old house, so we had the drums in one room, and you know. And just by doing that, and actually musicians who set up their own equipment, which that kind of teaches you to be a tech, setting up your own equipment in a way that's not just plonking something down and dragging cables everywhere. You go, well, if I have my cables more neatly, and if I route this one that way, then I can control my sound thing with this element thing here. I've got my little mixer here, you know, and just training yourself up that way. So I think musicians are in a great position to diversify their skills as well.
So I just want to ask one more question, and then I think we'll open it up for everybody else to ask questions, because I'm sure everybody's dying to ask you some stuff. But the one thing you know, COVID aside, how do you think the music industry has changed? Because I mean, it has changed massively, in my experience, from when I was
Mm.
first in the music industry to now.
It's such a fascinating topic, Bill. It's such an interesting topic. I think it's kind of regressed, but in a good way. Okay, I think the financial model is something that needs to be looked at. Okay, but what's definitely happening is it's getting more DIY. It's it's got more of a punk ethos behind it, and I don't mean punk as you just got that. I just mean like the attitude was, we don't need the industry. We can sell direct to our audience. We don't need RCA Records to pump this out. I can sell it direct. I've got 2,000 fans who are going to spend £5 on my record. Great, that's me. I've got a living. I think that with the advent of things like Bandcamp, and all these kind of direct to audience things, and I'm excluding streaming services slightly at the moment, even though streaming services are where everyone's going to end up. But the business model of that has to be addressed because it's not fair on artists at the moment. But it definitely it's going back to that kind of, I can do this for myself. I can record, I can set up a website. Websites now, you don't even need any coding knowledge. You can just make a really beautiful website in a day. I used to code websites as well. There's another thing I used to do because I was in a band. I learned HTML. Again, that's what being a musician forces you to sort of diversify. And that's what I think. I think it's going back to more of a punk attitude of do it yourself. And I think it will be more beneficial for the artists. This is just my opinion, to ditch Spotify. Dare to do it. Dare to do it. Just have the guts to step away. Surely, if you've got if you've got 1 million streams on Spotify and you're getting paid like £55, right? That's disgraceful. But if you sold 100 singles on Bandcamp for £2, that's better for less streams. So I think that this is more of a bigger conversation, but I think artists selling direct to their audience is the way forward, in my mind anyway. What do you think?
Well, saying that is...
I'd love to hear from some of the other people on this. I'd love to bring them in on this conversation.
I would also say that it's not only music, it's film as well. Independent is where it's at right now, and I think that COVID has probably boosted this along a little bit as well, is kind of because we haven't been able to be in studios, or we haven't been able to be on sets, or we haven't been able to go out and tour live. It's become even more of a DIY world than it was pre-COVID. So Ryan, if you want to just I'll open it up for questions now, and perhaps you can say me, and Ryan will say we'll just select who wants to come in.
Bill, if I may, I want to ask a question to our participants here, right? Based on what we were just talking about, you guys are the future. You're the musicians and the engineers and the people who are going to be doing it when we're retired, right? What do you think the future of this is going to be? Where do you see an audience, for either a distribution idea or how things are going to change? I'd love somebody to jump in on this if you've got the confidence to come and have a chat.
The way I see it, I think it's going to be like you said. There's more of a boost of popularity in more indie kind of DIY stuff, and I think it's pretty likely that once this COVID thing has come and passed, more bigger companies and studios and all that may take advantage of that. Then there may be like a positive compromise, like a mix of big and independent budgets, and not just limited to music, but of course films, gaming, and so on.
That's a great point, man, because I think it's sort of democratizing it a bit, because there's a lot of money in this industry. It's just it's held with a few people have it, and I think you might be onto something with that.
I think Jack has something to say.
Yeah, I think with everything that's gone on currently with COVID and what have you, and people not being able to go to concerts and what have you, it's seriously going to make people want to go back to them. and it's going to show how much we've missed not going to him. So I think there's going to be a lot more revenue in live performances than there were before, and I reckon there's going to be a lot more sellouts and a lot more revenue within like festivals and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's going to be a bit of a tidal wave, isn't it? When things get unlocked, it's going to be, whew, everybody's coming in to play their music, and everybody's going to be booking everybody. So yeah, it's get practicing now because it's all coming.
Have you seen that Reading and Leeds is already sold out in under, I think it was like 2 hours?
No,
Because
I didn't.
they've confirmed that with the whole government announcement last week that they think Reading and Leeds should be safe to go ahead. So they're like, "Yep, that's it. We're open," and literally everyone just swamped the website.
Yeah, if the government can get their act together, then end of August, that's probably a realistic time frame. I don't know if before that would be a realistic time frame, but I guess we'll have to wait and see. I'm going to read out that comment from Ben, Bill.
Yeah, so Ben says elimination of record labels to self-marketing via an online presence. Spotify and online streaming services are definitely here to stay, but it seems most of an artist's revenue is derived from merchandise public image. It seems that the artist is a commodity more than their music.
I would agree that is true, and I hope that we can do something to switch that round a little bit. And what you know, it's really weird. I've noticed that as a musician and an engineer, we're becoming the customer, and that seems really strange. Have you seen so many of like, hey, I've got this new sample pack. I can teach you how to be this, and I can. All these video training, sign up and pay things are being marketed at us. And it's like, when did we become the customer? We're supposed to be the supplier, and it's so strange. I mean, we've always been the customer to an extent, but in a wholesale way. But now, what we're getting sold marketing packages, and it's just so strange. It's such a strange time.
That's definitely due to the increase of the DIY home studio setup for sure. Yeah, go for it, Henry.
Mark, you said earlier that you were a director of a lot of movies and music videos and all that. I've been wondering, but I noticed that most, if not all, the music videos were, of course, live action, and I've been wondering, is it possible for more animated music videos, like animation and all that? Is that also could be possible to do like a fully animated music video? Is that?
I would love to see more of it, actually, mate. Funny you say that. I'm working on a part live action, part animated music video right now, for the same artist that we looked at earlier, and we're giving it a kind of Sin City sort of look. But there's elements. There's going to be like live animation within, so it's a mixed thing. And I've done that before. I think what's a shame about with animations is that animation tends to take quite a long time. And unfortunately, we have a restless industry that wants quick turnaround, and so it's hard to get that done. But yeah, certainly from my perspective, I'd love to do more of it. And I was actually considering sort of seeing who's available at the university. We've got an animation course, and maybe we could collaborate. You know,
I have a couple of friends who did stop motion mixed with live action for a band back home that I used to work with. Really, really cool actually to have that contrast happen between the two. Yeah, I can share a link if anyone's interested, but yeah.
Yeah, in fact, you know, when I played my showreel earlier, and there was you probably don't remember what it was, but there was one of the videos. I'm just going to show you a very brief screenshot, right? So there we go. Right, so I'll literally just for 1 second just show you this. So this here is so you see that bird taking
your
off.
Screen.
Oh, no, I've not shared it. Oh, sorry, I thought I had. Right, there we go. So you see this little bird taking off here, right? diving into the water and grabbing this thing and taking off. So that bag was real, and we shot it on green screen, and then we got the animator to put that into the 3D world. So it's a really cool. It's that was really awesome video to do that. So yeah, I think I'd love to see more animations done in music videos and to be honest, just general filmmaking commercials. I love it.
Anybody got any questions?
I have a question sort of about what we were previously talking about. In terms of selling individually directly to consumers, how do you think we could push this to a larger, more mainstream audience to try and encourage people to get off these major sort of streaming sites and platforms?
I have a thought on that. Do you? So I'll go if you like. I think your generation is kind of demonstrating it very well with your social media activity, and I think in some ways, because when we say mainstream audience, I think I'm not sure that is. I mean, is quite the phenomenon it used to be. Obviously we've got mainstream outlets, and you've got like your commercial arms of things, but actually, the power of this of social media is massive, and as long as but the thing I worry about is that the corporate gets their fingers on the social media and starts controlling things that way. I don't know. I guess maybe that's been my.
This comes back to what we were talking about earlier, in that whose definition of success are we talking about here? As a musician, to me, a definition of success would be that I'm touring, I'm able to make music, I'm able to put enough food on the table for me and my family, if I have a family, to eat and have some nice things in life and go on holiday once in a while, and that can be done by self-promotion. That doesn't have to be done via being signed to a major record label. That can be done through hard work. And lots of musicians have been doing that a lot more in recent times.
Yeah, well, that's a business model that's never going to change. You can still grow your audience dynamically like that in those ways. And I think it was Emma, wasn't it? But I think to define, I think the concept of even though we see social media and it seems like people are narcissistic and trying to get themselves famous, but I don't know. I think it's more to it than that. I think the concept of celebrity will not hopefully go away, but it will probably go away and fame will change, because I think there's enough people with niche interests that you can have a big audience. Just you've only got. I've been researching YouTube lately, right? And areas I'm not even interested in, people have got 100,000 subscribers. That's making a living. So I don't know. I actually think that the younger generation than me are going to set the rules for themselves, and I hope that is the case. Well, and I think it is up to them to do it.
Maybe this is what COVID has done for us. Maybe, because for every positive reaction, there's a negative reaction, and every negative thing, there's a positive thing. And I think that there's going to be lots of positives that come out of this dreadful situation that we've been in for a while now. And I think that the music industry in particular, and the film industry, has been probably for at least a decade been in a breaking down and rebuilding state. I don't know what you think about
that.
Yeah, go for it, Nelson.
Yeah, piggybacking off what Mark was saying earlier, he mentioned that he thinks the music industry, entertainment industry, because of lockdown, it has gave musicians a lot of time to get better at social media, if you're giving advice to, let's say, an independent artist who only has music and no internet, what's the word I'm looking for? Like experience.
Savvy.
Yeah, exactly. Where would your advice for him to start, whether it's podcasts, music videos, or, you know what I mean? Like, without any of that stuff, if all he had was his music, where would you recommend him getting started at, as far as the internet getting out there?
So if we, do you mean like if you couldn't use the internet, or do you mean that that just wants to learn some new skills?
Yeah, if he had the internet available to him and he just had his music, what advice would you give him to start? Whether it's Instagram, music videos, or podcasts, live?
The first thing I would probably do is start with your friends, right? Because like we don't want to annoy. Like, so for example, if you get a bit of, let's say I've got a new bit of a music project that I want to release, right? So Facebook first of all, right? And just say to my friends on Facebook, look, I'm not going to bother you too much with this, but if you give us a little bump and you get like 100 likes on your page or something, right? Starting there, then you've got a small audience who might, if you don't annoy them too much, might listen to what you're doing. Instagram and dare I say YouTube, but you don't have to put. I suppose then you need to do videos. Instagram, Facebook. I'd open this to other because like I'm not the same age as most of you guys here. What would you guys say to Nelson about this? How would you build it? How would you get used to? What would be your advice for getting more internet savvy skills while trying to grow an audience and get your music out there? I guess that's a very big question, but just to get started, I think Instagram, because you can hashtag and just popping up little clips of yourself done on your phone or something, or little created bits of content.
I know this is going to sound really crazy to say, but actually, I've known people that have done a lot of busking in this to the start of their career, and when I was on tour with bands, we busked as well, and busking does a lot more than just it builds a small audience. You can hand out like CDs or whatever, or whatever you want to hand out, but also it builds your chops as well, makes you good at dealing with it in a difficult situation and dealing with nerves, for one thing. I've been with so many musicians that I've toured with that had issues with nerves, and busking regularly helps break that down. And you can get somebody in the audience to film it, then you can put it on YouTube and things like that, and I know it sounds funny, but busking really is a good way into the industry.
Yeah, you're right there, Bill. It's a great thing to do. What I'd say to Nelson as well, another point I'd pick up on is collaborate. Work with someone else. Maybe whether that's getting in a band or just work with somebody who's going to record you or you record, and then you share your skill set, and they might be a bit more, internet savvy, if you like, or be able to help push the social channels, and they'll have more friends as well and more people that they can contact. So definitely collaborating with others and playing live if you can, I would say.
Just want to say, like, on terms of your starting on Instagram and stuff, try and pick kind of your image that you want to go for and be really, really consistent with it, because then now and then if anybody does go onto your page or any social media page, like you have your own brand, and it's easier then to pick out rather than kind of chopping and changing a few things. The other thing I would say as well is I try to post regularly, but I always jump the gun, and rather than build up content to then have something already in the works that I can post consistently, I tend to have gaps between my posting. So it might be like one this week, and it might be like 3 or 4 weeks time that I post again. So if you're going to go on, take a month, maybe even 2, build up stuff that you can post on a regular basis. And if the more active you are, the more, like, the algorithm of Instagram in particular tends then to bump up your hashtags, whatever you're choosing.
And that's a key. The key point is the hashtags as well, because if you want something to be seen, you know, you want to hashtag it with something relevant that's popular as well. I think, you know, I've definitely picked up a lot more Instagram follows that way. Absolutely, yeah. And like Ryan says, posting something regularly that has a kind of project ethos behind it and a consistent identity. Totally relevant.
And
we're going to be finishing up here in like 2 minutes, so I'm just going to put my email address into the chat window for everybody. So if you want to contact me after the fact, I'm probably going to finish for the day, to be honest, in a couple minutes, but I will, feel free to contact me and I will get back to you regarding anything to do with your course. If you have some thoughts on what we talked about today, we're probably going to publish this podcast. So if you want to know where that gets published, we can actually, in fact, Mark might put that in the chat now. So it's been really great talking to everybody here, and it's glad to see such an awesome turnout, and I really look forward to working with all of you in the future.